September 10th, 2025. The date alone will carry weight for years to come. The moment news broke that conservative activist Charlie Kirk had been assassinated on stage at Utah Valley University, the country felt the ripple. Some grieved, some gloated, many simply shook their heads in disbelief. But what followed in the days after was not just about Kirk's death. It was about what his life, and the reaction to his death, revealed about us. And nowhere did this divide play out more vividly than on America's biggest stage outside of politics, the National Football League. When Week 2 games arrived just days later, the NFL found itself facing a choice. How do you respond to a political figure's assassination? Do you honor him? Do you stay silent? Do you leave it to the teams? The answers were anything but consistent. And in that inconsistency, we saw the truth. America doesn't have a shared conscience anymore. That's what tonight's commentary is about. Not Charlie Kirk the man, not even the assassin who pulled the trigger, but the hypocrisy, the double standards, and the cultural cracks that his death laid bare for the world to see. The assassination of Charlie Kirk was a political earthquake. Imagine it, a packed auditorium, students gathered to hear him speak. For some, Kirk was a hero, a defender of conservative values, a fighter against what he called the radical left. For others, he was a provocateur, a man who thrived on stirring division. But no matter what you thought of him, the reality of his death hit hard. Assassination is rare in modern America. It's not supposed to happen here, not in 2025, not in a university lecture hall. The aftermath was immediate. Vigils sprang up across the country. In conservative communities, the mood was somber, reflective, angry. In progressive corners of the internet, there were darker reactions, jokes, memes, even celebrations. And in the middle, millions of Americans caught between outrage at the killing itself and exhaustion with the endless cycle of political violence and culture war rhetoric. But here's the point. How America responds to death has become political. It's not just about mourning a life. It's about choosing a side. Then came the NFL. The league that insists it just wants to play football, but somehow always ends up as the center of America's culture wars. On Thursday night, the Green Bay Packers hosted their Week 2 opener. The NFL mandated a moment of silence. Fans bowed their heads. No words, no speeches. Just silence. But by Sunday, the league backed away. They told individual teams, decide for yourselves. Some did. The New York Jets, the Miami Dolphins, the Tennessee Titans, the New Orleans Saints, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Dallas Cowboys, who didn't just pause, they projected Charlie Kirk's image across AT&T Stadium. But others refused. The Detroit Lions, the Cincinnati Bengals, the Baltimore Ravens, the Indianapolis Colts, the Minnesota Vikings. And that's where the controversy exploded. Why? Because in a country where the NFL has consistently taken collective stances on tragedies, George Floyd, 9/11, military deaths, even natural disasters, the lack of consistency here felt like a political statement. The NFL tried to stay neutral. Instead, it exposed itself as hypocritical. Let's not sugarcoat this. The NFL has no problem honoring some figures. George Floyd's name was painted in end zones. Players were allowed to wear his image on helmets. Teams took knees. Entire games were shaped by that moment. When John Lewis passed, tributes were public in uniform. When veterans are lost, the league knows how to mourn. On the anniversary of 9/11, the displays are massive, patriotic, impossible to miss. So why not here? Why not Charlie Kirk? The answer, whether we like it or not, is that his death is politically inconvenient. And here's the hypocrisy. If the standard is we honor those whose deaths shock the nation, then Kirk qualifies. If the standard is we only honor those we collectively admire, then Floyd shouldn't have qualified, because the nation was just as divided about him. But the NFL can't have it both ways. Either every human life cut short in violence deserves a uniform response, or the league should admit it's picking sides. Here's the truth. Sports are no longer just sports. They are politics by another name. When fans sit down to watch football, they're not just watching touchdowns and field goals. They're watching their culture reflected back at them. And for many, that reflection feels distorted. Some argue, keep politics out of football. But that ship has sailed. The NFL paints slogans on fields. It runs social justice campaigns. It enforces league-wide tributes for some tragedies while ignoring others. So when people say sports are neutral, they're lying. Or worse, they're blind. Football is America's new battleground. The league is caught between billion-dollar sponsors, a divided fan base, and a cultural war it cannot escape. And Charlie Kirk's death proved it once again. Let's be clear about Charlie Kirk. He wasn't universally beloved. He wasn't universally hated. He was polarizing. Founder of Turning Point USA. A relentless advocate for conservative youth activism. A fixture on campuses. A constant presence on podcasts, rallies, and television. To his supporters, Kirk was a warrior, unapologetic, direct, unafraid. To his critics, he was dangerous, a voice of division, a spreader of misinformation. And that's exactly why the NFL couldn't decide. Because honoring Kirk meant choosing sides. And ignoring Kirk meant choosing sides, too. In the end, the NFL chose the worst option of all, inconsistency. But let's step back. This isn't just about football. It's about America. We no longer share common ground, even in death. We no longer have a universal language of grief. Every tragedy is filtered through politics, weaponized, and thrown into the culture war blender. And that's dangerous. Because a nation that cannot mourn together is a nation that cannot heal. Charlie Kirk's assassination should have been a unifying moment. Not because everyone agreed with him, but because political violence should be universally condemned. Because the loss of life should be bigger than politics. Instead, we got division. Instead, we got hypocrisy. Instead, we got silence in some stadiums and applause in others. What does that tell us? That we are not one people anymore. We are tribes, factions, echo chambers. And that, more than Kirk's death, is the real tragedy. So here's the question. What do we do now? Do we keep pretending that football is just football, while the league picks winners and losers in the culture war? Do we keep acting like death itself has a political party? Or do we finally admit the truth? America is fractured, and until we learn to grieve together, we will keep tearing ourselves apart. Charlie Kirk is gone. The NFL showed us who it really is, and America showed us what it has become. The question left hanging in the air is this: will we ever find our way back to a common conscience? Because if we can't stand together in silence for 30 seconds, how will we ever stand together in life?